What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and I was going to start out this video by asking you all to send some positive vibes out to the people in Ohio, because they really need it right now. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there. But instead, I'm going to start out this video by saying just send positive vibes out into the universe for everyone, because the world is going crazy right now. And you know, life is so fast-paced these days, even for people out in the boondocks and in the sticks and in the country. Like with the power of the internet and virtual reality and all of this other stuff that's going on, people are constantly tied up into something. But there is a group of us. There's a group of us who are paying attention. And that's what's really important. Because at the end of the day, I feel like all of this is kind of up to us. If we want a change, if we want something positive to come of all of this, it's up to us. Because let's be honest, most people aren't paying attention. And even when you tell them, hey, all of this crazy stuff is going on, they don't really care. And they don't really register it. What I've realized is the majority of people don't give a damn about anything until it affects them directly. So you could warn people, hey, there's trains derailing everywhere. There's warehouses blowing up and catching on fire. Our food supply chain is in danger. And you can warn people about this 1,000 times, and it will fly right over their heads. Some of them will even label you a conspiracy theorist until they go to the grocery store and the shelves are bare. It's funny because we are surrounded by so many sheep. We are surrounded by so many people who refuse. And I mean, at this point, you have to refuse to pay attention to what's going on. It's like these people choose to ignore this stuff. And then when crap hits the fan, they panic and they go crazy. I don't know how things were in your town when this beer bug came about a couple of years ago. But once they started announcing lockdowns and things like that in my area, the toilet paper automatically went. It was so weird because they're announcing, hey, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Everyone's going to stay home. All these businesses are going to shut down. And people panicked. And what did they do? They bought up all the toilet paper. It was so weird because I'm walking through my local grocery store and like the canned food items are fully stocked. And that's what people really should have been going for, but no. People went directly for the toilet paper. So people aren't going to pay attention to all of this craziness that's going on until they have nothing left to wipe their asses with. That's the reality of how this goes. It's weird, it's crazy, but that's how these people are. You can warn them. You could beat it in their heads. Hey, this is going on. This is going on. Until they feel the effects directly, and I mean direct impact, they're going to just act like it's not happening. They're going to act like it's not happening. And what's happening right now is everyone's trying to act like all of this wild stuff isn't happening in the country. We've been talking about this East Palestine situation for a couple of weeks now, and we're going to continue to talk about it. But did you all know there was another train derailment in Ohio? In Springfield, Ohio, there was another Norfolk Southern train derailment. The people of Springfield, after this train derailment, were told to shelter in place. Hazmat crews immediately went to the scene. And ultimately, they declared that there was no hazardous material on this train and that everything was okay. But think about that for a second. Think about it. What is wrong with that story that I just told you? Hazmat crews had to show up to the scene, right? And then they had to figure out on their own that, hey, there's no chemicals on this train. Everything's okay. Why wouldn't they already know that? Why isn't there something put in place to where we can track what is on these trains? If you would have told me a month and a half ago that there's trains traveling all across America And in reality, no one really knows what's on them. That governors and mayors and what have you of certain districts and towns and cities and states, that they don't have any clue what's on the trains that are passing through our communities. Our government officials who are supposed to know this stuff, this is literally what you're here for. Like, you're not here to launder money and to get rich off the expense of other people. You're here to take care of these things. Like, if you're going to do some shady stuff, whatever. But at the very least, do your job. But that job is not being done. What I had to find out, which is something I didn't know from this East Palestine situation, is that we have no idea. And when I say we, I don't just mean like regular people like me or you, but even our elected officials. They have no idea, or at least they say they don't. At least they say they don't. Have no idea about what's on these trains. That train derailment in Springfield, you shouldn't have to send hazmat or anyone down there. You should automatically know, hey, there's chemicals aboard this train that are dangerous, or not. Or not. But the reaction to this just further shows me what's really going on here. That hazardous materials are secretly traveling all around America and no one is given a heads up about what trains are carrying what. And that, folks, is very dangerous. And it's very stupid. And we should depend on the professionals to actually have this stuff in order. I mean, Chick-fil-A's drive-thru. Chick-fil-A's drive-thru is more coordinated and in better shape than our railway systems that are carrying hazardous materials with the ability to destroy a whole entire town in mere moments. In minutes, any of our towns and cities, for the most part, depending on where you live, can and will be affected in the future if this stuff isn't handled. So we have the East Palestine situation. We now have the Springfield derailment. Out in Cincinnati, another industrial warehouse, a huge warehouse, caught on fire. And let's talk about that for a second. Because we are labeled conspiracy theorists when we start connecting the dots. And we're like, why are all of these warehouses suddenly catching on fire and blowing up and all of this madness? And like, listen, it doesn't go over my head that we have a heightened sense of awareness right now. Like, we're looking into the Palestine situation, so we have a heightened sense of awareness when it comes to train derailments and things like that. I understand that this stuff happens. I understand that fires happen. Of course they do. They've always happened. But you mean to tell me that all of these factories around America, all in the span of 6 months or so, just are up in flames and no one knows why? And really think about it. What explanation have we been given for this stuff? We see the news, and usually we don't see this news from mainstream mainstream news outlets. We're getting this news about these factories from independent journalists. We're getting this news from people who actually live in these areas and take the videos and take time to alert other people that this stuff is going on. Because the mainstream media isn't going to do it. But think about it. When have we ever been given an explanation for any of these fires? It's like we hear, oh, a warehouse in Florida, a food processing plant in Florida just blew up and it's currently on fire. Firefighters are at the scene battling the raging flames. And you see that, and then is there ever a follow-up? Hey, well, it turns out this is what caused the fire. Turns out this is what caused the explosion. No, we are never given an explanation for any of this stuff. Ever. Ever. I can't think of one occurrence where we have been given the explanation as to why it happened afterwards. It's like you hear about it, it's a blip on your radar, and then it's gone until the next one. Now, in my opinion, I think this is something bigger here. At this point, I feel like it's got to be connected. There's something going on here. What it is, we could debate about that, or we could ponder over that, brainstorm about that, but I feel like there's something going on here for sure. But let's just say there's not. Let's say there's nothing, there's no big conspiracy here. Do you think that makes this not worth talking about? Even if there is no big conspiracy here, do you think that it's not worth talking about that our trains are just derailing all over America? That our food factories are exploding and bursting into flames out of nowhere? And that all of these warehouses that deal with hazardous chemicals are suddenly starting to catch flame too? And they're set ablaze out of nowhere? Even if this isn't one big conspiracy, even if all of this stuff isn't connected, then at the very least, I feel like it shows us that our country is like falling apart at the seams right now. Either we hired a bunch of woke idiots that aren't qualified for the job, which I think that's the case sometimes, and they're causing a lot of problems, or our infrastructure and everything we've built is just all collapsing and breaking down at once. Now, I personally think it's connected. I definitely do. But since we're talking about this hazardous material, all of these hazardous materials, we have to talk about what happened in NYC yesterday. In Manhattan yesterday, a car was found with a woman deceased inside. Inside the vehicle were hazardous materials. Hazardous materials in this vehicle that caused the driver or the person inside the car to pass away. Other people who opened the doors were also injured. I mean, the whole scene played out. In fact, let's watch this scene play out. I'm going to show you all this clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts. Stay tuned.
There's the car.
Now, at the time of this recording, this video is going to be uploaded hours from now. At the time of this recording, I hope you all heard that, there's been no explanation given for this situation. There has been zero explanation as to what in the heck happened in Manhattan yesterday at the time of this recording. They haven't said what the chemicals were, what was the hazardous materials. They haven't said anything. Now, if you live in this area, maybe you have more information than I do. I live all the way across the country. But as far as everything that I've looked into, we haven't been given a real explanation. Now, there are theories floating online. Some people think that she chemically unalived herself on purpose. Others are saying this is like a mobile lab, if you will, that people are cooking up all types of stuff in their cars these days, turning their vehicles into mobile drug labs. Possibility. Either one of those are possible. But I don't want to speculate too much. But what I will say is, we are in the middle of this heightened awareness, about these hazardous chemicals, and we're starting to put pieces of a puzzle together. We're trying to connect dots here. And here we have this crazy situation in Manhattan, which you would think would make national news, but you probably didn't even know this happened. And in my opinion, or I don't want to say in my opinion, I would just say this. Do you not think that there's a possibility that this was supposed to be some type of attack? That maybe the person driving the vehicle with all of this hazardous materials were too dumb to realize, hey, these hazardous materials are going to fuck me up. And then they winded up dying? I mean, when you see something like this in the middle of Manhattan, it gets scary. Because we know those are the places that these type of people want to go when they carry out these type of events. Now, what are these hazardous materials? Can drugs sometimes be labeled as hazardous materials? Possibly. But from what I've seen, they were carrying out bags of what looked like liquid and stuff like that. And the one thing they did say was they weren't sure if this was criminal or not. And I don't know what they mean by that. I mean, you have toxic chemicals stored in a vehicle that are powerful enough, or hazardous material. I don't want to say toxic chemicals. You have hazardous material in your vehicle that's strong enough to kill you and to injure other people who are opening your vehicle. I'm just wondering what's really going on here. And you got the hazmat crew showing up, and they're taking this situation very seriously, yet the news totally dismissed this as a thing. The news never even picked this up. And as of right now, I can't find any explanation as to what actually happened. Or what do they think was really going on here? And I think that's very scary, because I think the people of Manhattan deserve to know what in the heck is going on. We have vehicles that are being found that are smacked full of hazardous materials and dead bodies in those vehicles and stuff. Someone needs to say something. Even if this was a personal situation and it wasn't an attack or anything like that, people still deserve to know what's going on here. And as someone who covers news and as someone who looks into these situations, it's hard for me to ignore this, especially considering everything else that's going on in our country right now. You know what I mean? Like, with all of this other stuff going on and all of this talk about hazardous materials, how can I ignore a car packed full of hazardous materials in Manhattan? How could I ignore that? The mainstream media seems to have an easy time ignoring stuff like this stuff. But I'll leave it up to you all. Let me know what you all think happened. Maybe some of you all live in this area. Maybe you all know more about this situation than I do. But from everything I looked into, we're still waiting on an explanation. Let me know your thoughts though down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.